Bene, bentornati e bentornate per una nuova puntata di Mr. Micro and the Vintage Vault. Io sono Max e sono un appassionato di videogame e storia dell'informatica di consumo, oltre che un collezionista di vecchie macchine. Bene, ci ritroviamo nel 2024, dopo un advent show, devo dire, con qualche soddisfazione. È un anno in cui, diciamo, ho deciso di fare un po' di cose e di inaugurare, diciamo, le nuove puntate del Vintage Vault a iniziare da questa serie dedicata al Commodore 16, ovvero venerdì 16. Ad ogni modo ne parleremo più nel dettaglio subito dopo la consueta sigla. Bene ragazzi e ragazze, un grazie per chi mi ha seguito durante l'Advent e vi dirò un paio di cose prima di iniziare questa puntata del venerdì 16, piuttosto lunga, piuttosto lunga. Ci eravamo lasciati con l'idea di fare puntate corte, quindi brevi, massimo un quarto d'ora, dedicate al Commodore 16 insieme alle altre serie che io faccio sul canale. Rimango di questa idea. Ad ogni modo, per iniziare l'anno in bellezza vi ho preparato una puntata speciale che è questa qua. Come vi dicevo prima della sigla, a iniziare da quest'anno tenterò perché sono piuttosto discontinuo di fare quello che è appunto una serie dedicata al Commodore 16 plus 4 ogni venerdì intorno alle, diciamo, 6 di sera, chiaramente registrata perché io streaming per me sarebbe quasi impossibile per ragioni pratiche, insomma, di vita. E ad ogni modo, un appuntamento fisso tutte le settimane di una puntata sulla serie 264, di cui quest'anno cade il quarantennale, no? Eh, per la precisione intorno al 10, tra il 10, l'11 e il 12 di gennaio del 1984, la serie 264 fu ufficialmente annunciata al CES di Las Vegas, da chi? Dalla Commodore chiaramente, da Jack, che poi da lì a poco se ne sarebbe andato via per ragioni, diciamo, di cui diciamo, parleremo durante questa puntata. Ad ogni modo, come dicevo, cade il quarantennale, quindi ho ritenuto interessante e diciamo carino fare una puntata iniziale per la serie appunto dedicata al Commodore 16 plus 4 speciale con un ospite, un ospite che posso chiamare, diciamo, posso definire come un amico, lo conosco insomma da qualche anno e di cui vi ho parlato anche durante l'Advent. Un'altra novità è che l'intervista che ho fatto a quest'ospite, che diciamo mi auguro sia di vostro gradimento, l'ho fatta senza maschera perché insomma è brutto fare un'intervista senza maschera, quindi svelerò il mistero del mio viso almeno per questa puntata, poi non ho ancora deciso se rimetterò la maschera per le altre oppure la toglierò definitivamente, non lo so ancora, devo ancora decidere. Ad ogni modo, non perdiamo troppo tempo perché questa sarà una puntata piuttosto lunga e passiamo a vedere l'intervista a questo ospite d'eccezione, come dicevo, una persona che stimo molto, che secondo me, insomma, ha rappresentato, come dire, uno dei protagonisti di quel periodo e quindi passiamo immediatamente alla puntata, al vivo della puntata, andando all'intervista con il mitico Bil Herd.
With great honor and pleasure, we welcome Bil Herd, a visionary and pioneer in computer industry. His remarkable career and contribution has left an indelible mark on history of technology in general, and microcomputer in particular. In any case, welcome Bill, it's an honor to have you with us today. Just to break the ice, I could ask you to briefly introduce yourself, although I know that most of those watching this video already know who you are very well. In any case, could you please introduce yourself and briefly share your life story, highlighting key moments or experience that, let's say, shaped your life and your work.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Bil Herd. I'm a recovering Commodore engineer, and I had the absolute pleasure of working at Commodore back in the heyday of the 1980s when we were making stuff up. There wasn't a manual for how to make a computer. There wasn't an architecture for what you should do. So that was the beauty of the time I was there. So, but I was one of those electronics kids in the 70s and 60s, building kits and I became a licensed television repairman and learned how to fix things. I could fix almost anything, and that's pretty much the skill that got me into Commodore. I think was just being able to understand things. So since then, I'm an entrepreneur and own my own businesses and stuff, but I've been doing a lot with VCF lately. It's been really gratifying to find this this interest in the Vintage Computer Federation shows we've been to. So I was to like 5 of them last year, and it was just wonderful. Go to VCF.
Okay.
So what you got for me?
Okay, I have another question. Could you please provide us a brief overview of your journey at Commodore? Share with us how you initially joined to the company and how eventually became responsible for the system architecture of our 264 series. I don't know, could you highlight key moments and experience that has defined your role in shaping the Commodore 264 platform? And I know that is a funny story about how you, let's say, become responsible for the platform. I don't know. Go ahead and tell us your story.
Well, yeah, it started because me and my boss, I worked at Pennsylvania Scale Company with a couple other soon-to-be Commodore employees. And I started thinking about punching him a lot. And so I decided rather than punch my boss, I should leave. And Headley Davis, star of Screen, Stage, Xbox, Commodore Mouse, and a bunch of Amiga stuff, said, well, hey, there's this place hiring tonight, basically. So I drive there. My van has problems. I get there, I'm still in jeans, and it didn't go well. I pissed off the first guy, I thought, right? And then the second guy was like, yeah, you don't have school. You're a high school dropout. But as we were talking, he realized I understood the 6502. And I'm sitting there muttering opcodes is the famous line from it, where he says load X immediate, and I knew that was a 05, for example. And he said, well, let's have you come into the company. He actually said plant tomorrow. So I go in the next day, think I'm up to corduroy jeans now, but still jeans. And I didn't take my resume because I didn't know I was interviewing more. I thought he was just giving me a tour of a chip fab. And then on top of that, I sat down in Shiraz's chair while waiting for Shiraz to come interview me to see if I could be hired. So it's like I just made this chain of mistakes just trying to get there. And the whole moment it changed was when I'm talking with Shiraz, the guy who originally I didn't, Frank Hughes. Now we're good friends, right? He goes and grabs the resume for me. And Shiraz started asking me about scales, which I was working on. And because I knew my industry pretty well, he knew I could transfer that to what we were doing there. Is how I interpret it. So it was that was it. And then I didn't know it, but I was hired to be a technician. I didn't know that till I read Brian Bagnall's book.
Yes,
and
I have read it.
Good
on,
thing
Brian books. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a good thing nobody told me, because I thought I was an engineer. So I went off and found the hardware lab, and they were, I was talking to him. I'm like, are you sharing the bus every hour they're doing? He goes, yeah. And I go, I'm doing that at home. They look at me funny. I actually have the board over there still of that I did in back then, that I was playing with at home. That was the foundation of the architecture of the TED chip. Here's a C16. Uh-oh, you didn't see the key. You didn't see the keycap just fall off, but
it's a sample revision B and TSC. A sample version.
This is how. That's how I got it through it. FCC.
It's a prototype, or let's say industrialized. Let's say
early
version.
production.
Early production. Okay.
For FCC, this is my personal test. Right. So, yeah. So I found myself in charge of TED after 1 week, and the good news was, I knew how to make a product. I had worked at Pennsylvania Scale Company. I had turned several products, so I knew every step. You know, Commodore had more steps, but they're just kind of details. So, and that's how it started. It was just accidental. I'm
after
so
1 week, you become responsible for the 264 platform.
Yeah,
it's only in Commodore can happen something like that. In any case, okay. Can you share another question? Can you share any anecdotes or behind-the-scenes stories from the development of the Commodore 264 series that you consider interesting or crucial or important for your point of view?
I think so. When I started at Commodore, the the 264 was already designed, right? So I became the lead engineer, but I'm not the designer of the TED. That was done by the chip guys, right? They defined the chip, and all we did was surround it.
Sorry, they defined the system architecture, the chip guys. Oh, it's quite
Dave
strange.
DiOrio, there's a patent on it too. If you look up the TED chip, there's a patent with Dave DiOrio, Eric Yang, and Bruce Aherns for the TED chip architecture.
For the TED chip architecture, I know, but regarding, let's say, the system architecture, who designed it?
That was done when I got there, but the point is, that's the only way you can. It's made to be like 2 LS 257s, 2 16K/4s. You know, it's kind of like a paint by number set at that point. You have to put RAM where RAM goes type thing. So, so I'm walking around with the schematic rolled up under my arm, right? Because I'm the caretaker of the schematic, but I didn't yet mentally own it, right? I'm still somebody else's design was the way I was thinking of it. And then one day, we get a new TED chip, and I take one of the joysticks, and I actually just sent my joystick to Santa, my original Commodore joystick from this story, but it sparkled when you got it near the computer, and I said, if that's the case, I should be able to crash it by doing this. And it did. It crashed the computer. I pull out the schematic because I've got it with me. I look down and I see the data bus. I knew it, but I didn't know it. The data bus was going out the cord to the push button on the joystick. It's like D0, data line 0. I'm like, oh my God, no hardware engineer in his right mind would have ever done that, right?
It's quite dangerous.
This is proof it was designed by a chip designer. Just that's your clue. But I laughed, and at that moment, I took ownership. I said, that one's on me. I didn't see it. And that's where I ended up finding an MOS chip that we made, and I love when we make them, right? Nobody can hold me up and say, haha, Commodore, reach for it. No, I make my own chips, you know, is the way we treated it. And my boss was, when it first happened, he's like, I'm laughing. He's like, stop laughing. And he's like, I'm like, well, this is, he's like, fix it or you're fired. And I'm like, okay, I'll fix it. So a couple hours later, he walks in the lab and I'm sitting there playing a video game and he's getting a little mad because he's like, well, I thought I told you to fix it. And I just point at the monitor and I go back playing the game and he gets even madder. And finally I showed him that I put a 16-foot cord on it, wrapped it around the tube of the picture tube. We took the case off the monitor, wrapped the joystick cable inside the case to the thing, and I'm still playing the game, proving it's fixed.
Can you tell us about how the 264 series came to be initially? What Jack's vision was for the series and how he intended to market it? In what price range did Jack plan to position the 264 series, and what hardware feature did he envision the 264 series should incorporate? It's let's say a quite standard let's say question, but I think that it is always interesting to let's say know about the point from the people that made the history of the
Right.
264 series.
Right. You know, and like I said, it was, the direction was picked before I got there. But when I walked in, Shah Shivji showed me a Timex Sinclair Spectrum. So Jack, you know, my understanding is Jack considered the C64 to be the Apple killer.
Yeah.
We stopped talking about Apple. We were like, they're done, right? For our business market, right? Which unfortunately didn't include schools. I wish it did, but it didn't. But hang on, I lost my train of thought there because I was thinking about some of the C16. Oh, so the market was, he wanted Sir Clive Sinclair's market.
Yeah.
His business was war to Jack Tramiel, and now he wanted his lunch. That's the way I look at it. And the 264 was supposed to be a business computer that sold for 79 USD, right? The 116, a little small one, this one was supposed to sell for $49.
49, so
And
the $49
49,
the
yes.
sale price.
That's the sale price,
Sale
49. This costs about $11 to make in 1980.
$11, so it's very cheap.
So yeah, so and then Jack's vision included new floppy drives. They were faster. They tried to fix the serial problems. There was parallel. We had a new monitor. We had 2 new printers, all of the same style. And literally, it's the works. It was meant to be the workstation of the 1980s. You put Magic Desk on it, and you've got a workstation. File cabinets, trash cans, all this kind of stuff. And if you have 5 employees, it'll cost you $79 times 5, plus the monitor and hard drive in there.
At the end of the story, they were, let's say, globally speaking, quite affordable. That's what they have understood.
Right.
And
And
yeah.
then we had the 364, which talked, which I loved. I thought that was cool. All right. And I'm not easily amused by technology. And then Jack leaves. And all the peripherals start just dying. It was like a tree dying, right? The peripherals go away. The 116 goes away. 364 is a forgotten thing. And marketing gets a hold of it and says, well, is it a 64? And we go, no. And they go, can we charge the same amount as a 64? And we're going, it was made to sell for $79. And they go, +4. We have to go now. We're starting another computer. And you just heave it over the wall, right? And let Commodore do with it what it will at that point. You know, you have to say, okay, now it's in marketing and sales. And obviously it hit the floor there pretty hard.
As far as I know, during the winter sales of 1984, the biggest news from Commodore was the announcement of the new 264 family microcomputers, no? Which initially should have contained the consumer selectable choice of built-in software, and even the Magic Desk software. So Commodore announced that customers should be able to purchase the 264 with one or several application program options built into ROM. But details of various options were still being vague during the, let's say, the announcement of the series. During the Winter Chess, Commodore not announced a price officially, but a company representative, we don't know who,
yeah, you're wrong.
Indicated that the retail price will be under $500, so it's a huge price. Jack was on the verge of leaving Commodore during the Winter Chess due to the conflicts that have arisen with Irving Gould. No? What happened? So my question is, what happened? Do you know anything more about what happened in the relationship between Jack and Irving beyond what let's say, has been revealed so far? And more importantly, who at Commodore orchestrated the launch of the 264 series in this clumsy manner? Some say that the person behind the shift in launch strategy for the 264 series was the head of a software department at the time, Mr. Hartman, that has some interest in order to sell license for software.
Right. So I've heard them all the stories. I know the ones I don't believe. I know the stories that may be believable, but I land on Leonard Trammell's story. So yeah, Leonard tells the story about how Jack left. What I can add to it is they tried, I know what reasons he didn't leave for, because they tried those on us. They said, oh, Jack couldn't take us to 10 billion. We didn't believe that. Then they're like, oh, Jack was doing nepotism with his sons. We didn't care. You know, so they put out a new rumor to tell us why Jack's gone, and we didn't fall for it. So that's really, and Sig Hartman, I had all the respect for him. So I don't know what he was doing with licensing, but he worked with Jack. He would have been, they would have been up to something. Yeah.
Let's say
they were close.
So let's say you don't know exactly who has changed the strategy and for which reason he's changed the strategy for the launch.
So
it's general marketing, but we don't know who.
Right. I'm the one that opened the door for that stupid software. I shouldn't even call it stupid software. I've never used it. But I went to my boss and said, I can do something which is called, we call it function ROM, right? I said, I can put in extra EEPROM sockets and you can put more software in there. And he went to marketing and said, look what we can do, right? Well, that all came from us, the designers. And so now, because I put that capability in there, the Plus4 software could come along and sell for $3.99. So it's like, I was damned if I do and damned if I didn't. Now, the one thing I did sneak in there when I snuck in the function ROMs, I put a real 6551 UART in it. So in recognition of it being a true business machine, I gave it true serial. And that was my contribution, and I liked that. I had to make a special V2 clock using a programmable array logic and stuff, but I wanted that 6551 in there.
And it is a very important feature, in fact, in order to...
It is! I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead with another question. Staying on the topic of Jack Trammell. What kind of relationship do you have with him? What were your thoughts on him, on his work style? For many, he's being perceived as an angry shark, okay? A capitalist of the worst kind, while for others, he's seen as an hero and innovator who brought affordable microcomputers into every household. What's your perspective on him? My personal opinion is that probably the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But I was not so lucky to know him, but you were one of his employees. So I would like to understand which kind of relationship you have with him, your opinion on the people.
Right, right. So I never spoke to Jack directly while I was employed there, but I knew I worked for him. We all knew we worked for him. If Jack said something, we did it. If we said we would have it done at a certain date for Jack, we would have it done at a certain date for Jack. That was the give and take of working at Commodore. You know, so I'm one of the small group of people that know what it's like to do a product with Jack there and with Jack gone, you know, because the 128 then was after he left.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just a headless company after Jack left. You know, and the 128's proof of that. It's like nobody stopped us, you know, so we just went ahead and made one. So now I did talk to Mr. Trammell at the C64 anniversary. Actually, no, before then I talked to him at the Atari booth at 86 or 85 CES show. I said, Mr. Trammell, I used to work for you. It's just nice to meet you. I never talked to you. And he said something, and Sig Hartman, who you've already mentioned, throws his arm around my shoulder to lead me off going, he's serious about the job offer he just gave you. And I'm like, what? So Sig had picked up on Jack had given the nod.
Sig was also, I don't remember if he left Commodore for Atari. Perhaps I remember wrong.
At that time, no. I don't know where he went,
After
but
while,
he left around that. Yeah. So and then I met him at the Commodore 64 anniversary, and turns out he was a typewriter repairman in the service. I was a teletypewriter repairman in the service. He didn't finish high school. I didn't finish high school. And so we're sitting there and we've got all these things in common that I was like, but yet, you know, when I was a long-haired self-taught engineer, and he might have loved me or I might have pissed him off. I'll never know, thankfully. But, you know, I could see me so focused on getting something done, I'd push him out of the way to get it done and then realize I just pushed the boss or something. So it was probably good that Shiraz. So what would happen is Shiraz would go up the mountain and come down, and he would tell us, and that's how we got the message. So we were only one hop away from the decision making going on.
Okay.
So it's very cool back there.
Let's talk about the TED chip. The TED chip played a crucial role into the 264 series. Can you share us the history of that very interesting chip, some insight into the development and how it influenced the capabilities of the 264 series? Based on my understanding, at Commodore, proprietary chips, let's say, were concurrently developed with the new hardware architecture to facilitate collaboration between, let's say, system engineering group and chip design teams. This approach created a symbiotic feedback loop between the two groups in order to, let's say, produce let's say, much more innovative product. Did you experience a similar situation during, let's say, your experience in development of 264 series or not?
Yeah. When I got there was a lot of finger pointing. And it would be chip designers pointing at programmers, and programmers annoyed at chip designers, and the hardware people are supposed to insulate both from each other, right? But that wasn't going on. And we're all on the same team. And it wasn't bad. It was just kind of like, you know, take that with you type thing. But so when we did the 128, I called everybody together and I pointed to the chip designer. I said, this guy will give you everything you ask for. Ask now, and the chances go up that you'll get it. But in return, when we get near the end of the project, you're going to fix his problems in software. Just deal with it. And we didn't have a problem. we asked for everything we could up front, and then we fixed all the broken stuff in the back, you know. And so yeah, that thing you're talking about also existed, that friction between Commodore Pennsylvania, and then we moved to Westchester,
yeah,
and Commodore Japan.
Yes,
right.
But they were
but
separated groups, as far as I know. No, Commodore
they were.
Westchester is, let's say, a place founded by Chuck, and they were, let's say, that indirect, let's say, competition with the Pennsylvania group. That's what I know.
Right. So actually, they weren't in competition. What happened was Albert, for example, the 64, got handed off. And I think of Yosh Terakura in this role. He's kind of was the guy flying back and forth between U.S. and stuff. And I know everybody in the Tokyo plant. I just have all the respect for him. Okubo-san. And so that changed when I was there. When we first got to TED, they flew me to Japan in the 80s. Who did that, right? Well, I came back speaking Japanese. I came back. My English changed. I started making letters different on drafting paper because I like the way Japanese drew their numbers, right? And then they sent somebody here. Pretty soon we're speaking our own mix of Japanese and English, and we're cracking each other up, and so we all became on the same side. And to that end, the 128 was designed so that the PC board could be auto-inserted in America or through a tool in Japan called a pan insert. So we even made the product could be made in either the US or Japan easily.
Good. So, another question. You should know that one big concern that the user had about 264 series was related to getting rid of hardware sprites. That was considered a major error. The other one was related to the sound capabilities. Oh, let me say that I'm not. It's not my opinion, but it's let's say a general opinion that one of the problem is the absence of the hardware sprites. I don't know.
But you get 121 colors. It's not a game machine. You get 121 colors.
Let's say, an added features that was let's say very interesting. But in any case, what do you think about that? It was an error to get rid of the hardware sprite? No.
If you look at a VIC chip, it's the VIC chip is a sprite machine wrapped. First off, second off, timing. Third off, heat. Fourth off, it's not a game machine. We were taking the time that the sprites normally used on the bus, and that's where the extra color comes from. So at the heart of it is a limit as to how much information I can push back and forth.
So it's
like
not a problem of
so
the
you
space.
better be ready each time. Yeah.
It's not problem of the space of the die. It's a problem of the let's say width of the bus.
No, the space on the die would also be a problem because the VIC register.
Okay.
But I'm just saying
two problems.
That as a system, it's the access time of the DRAMs and the way we line those up with the phi clock. And you only get phi low, phi high, phi low, phi high. VIC chip processor. Whoa, process, and you have to give it up if you go sprite. The processor's going, he's trying to get in there,
the
right?
Chip, and also the VIC2 chip.
It takes over the bus. Yeah.
Have the concurrent access with the CPU to the bus, so it's a problem of synchronization.
Right. VIC always wins. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I just got an email from Albert Charpentier here while we're talking, the designer of the VIC chip, and I've told him, I've said, man, that VIC chip's she's a harsh mistress. What? He goes, I said, yeah, he'll give you all this beautiful stuff, but if you get the timing wrong, she'll hurt you. And he laughed.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. The other thing I tease Albert about is I go, ha, Albert, my VIC chip's 48 pins. Yours is only 40.
Yes, in fact, it has a lot of pins. But
Yeah. They didn't exist back in Albert's time. That's why I tease him.
it's a great guy, Albert.
Yes.
A genius in my point of view.
Brilliant. Yes, I was just saying that. Yeah.
In any case, I have another question also regarding
Okay.
people, not let's say technical stuff. David Iorio was one of the engineers who contributed significantly to the development of that chip, for what I know. And I believe he played a key role in the design of that chip. Can you tell us more about Dave, his work at Commodore, and the relationship you had with him? Were you close friends? I know he unfortunately passed away a few years ago to a serious illness. So, in my opinion, it is important to, let's say, let the people know who was Dave.
Right.
Because
yeah,
he's not
he was
anymore here.
Right. Yeah. Dave and I were best friends for a time. During the TED development, we would both be working at like 9 o'clock at night, and then take a break and walk around, and oh, you're working too. And pretty soon we're start timing our, like, when we get to 9:30, 10 o'clock, it was time to go hit the bar, right, before going home, or 12 o'clock, or whatever time. But we had the same work ethic, and
yes,
and that's how we became friends, as we weren't, you know. And so I know Dave is listed on the patent of the Vic chip along with Albert first, like maybe Eric in there. But then the TED chip, the guy who ran the TED chip was Bruce Aherms, and then Dave was his lieutenant, and then but then Dave, because Dave and I spent so much time together, he taught me what's inside a chip just past the pin, and you look in the chip, and I taught him what's on the outside banging on the door, right? I taught him how the bus tri-states and gets ugly and emissions and stuff. So he became kind of a system designer. So, you know, and I became kind of a chip designer. And so we had this nice relationship where we could understand each other's problems.
So it's a confirmation. He was, let's say, key people, because probably...
absolutely, yeah.
He acted like a bridge between the, let's say, system design group, a chip design group, also, let's say, improving, let's say, the general design of the platform. That's what I have, let's say, understood from your story. Okay, now we are approaching the 14th anniversary of the Commodore 260 series. And how do you reflect on the 14th anniversary of the series? And what other memories emerge from the development of the Commodore 264 series? So, if you have any other memories, and how do you reflect on these 40 years?
Right. Well, I can't believe anybody remembers these computers, and I can't believe any are still working after all these years. I figured out why they're working, by the way. Y'all are fixing them. None of them would be working unless they had been repaired. That's the bottom line. And I spent last year, after the pandemic, going to VCFs. I went to about 5 VCFs, and the excitement that people had for old stuff, and old Apples and old IBMs and Cray and everything. But it was just, it's like a party. So I'm really amazed at the passion people show for this vintage stuff. Yeah, I recognized, you know, Bill Mensch called me.
Great.
When I was working.
Another genius.
Yeah. But he thankfully he doesn't remember this call. Because he was trying to sell me the 65816 for Commodore to expand into 16 bits. And I was like, that's a dead architecture. It's a great 8-bit machine. Don't get me wrong. We're going with the 68,000, and Bill didn't like that. But, you know, it was a microcontroller at its heart. It really, really was. It just had 13 modes of addressing that made it hugely useful to make printers and stuff.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, no, it was time to grow out of it. Yeah. Now, have you seen Eric Schlaffer's Monster 6502?
Yes, I seen it. Yes, the bigger one.
Yeah, that's
yes.
Right. That's the only way. You can't go forward with the 6502, so you might as well go sideways and make it big, right?
But it is interesting, let's say, learning project, because it shows how it works for, let's say, for learning purpose. Okay, so we can go ahead with another question. The demo scene has embraced Commodore computers over the years. Even today, there are enthusiasts pushing Commodore machines beyond their limits, making them to unimaginable things. How do you feel about the creative and artistic uses people have found in 264 series over the years? Indeed, there are several Hungarian, German, even Italian coders who are very skilled and have pushed the platform to its limits over the years. In fact, you should be aware that around 1987, a significant number of computers and peripherals from 264 series were acquired by the Hungarian government for use in schools. It's quite interesting news. There are various newspaper articles, including coverage in Commodore user, detailing the operation that engaged the Commodore UK. Looking at the current vintage computer community, how do you perceive the continued interest in the appreciation for the Commodore 264 series of microcomputers? So basically we are talking about something that is arts rather than, let's say, technical stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing what they do, isn't it? It's just... the stuff I've seen, I would almost say you can't do it, except there's proof you can right there on the screen. So the artistry, and it's funny, somebody called me, this is back in the days of disco, the TED was brand new, and a guy called me and got all the way through to my desk, and he's asking me, how can I make the border bigger so that when my dancers are dancing, they don't see a black border around the sparkle? And it was pretty fun, because already, you know, within the first month, I was answering artistry questions directly to the public. It was pretty funny. So no, it's amazing. And I can't believe people still use the old stuff, but I get it. I get it. You know, when I walk by an Atari 800, I do kind of reach out and go, ooh, baby. You know, I never had one. That's the computer I was saving my money for when I got my job at Commodore. But that brown color still speaks to me.
A few years ago, retrocomputing and retrogaming phenomena were niche interest, but today they have almost become a mainstream market. Alongside these trends, I'm concerned about the historical revisionism. What are your thoughts on the fact that for several years now, the history of microcomputers has been reduced to a debate between Microsoft and Apple, overlooking crucial players like Commodore, Sinclair, Acorn, Atari? I mean, I remember, I have a, let's say, memory, a recent memory, that during the COVID period, there was this online gathering to celebrate the 6502 processor. I think that you also put the link in your Facebook profile, where prominent figures like Bill Mesh, Archampertier, and of course you were present. I vividly recall that most of the time was spent talking about Steve Jobs' Apple II and how precious a particular Apple II it was. No? It really made me laugh a lot. You have Bill Mesh there, okay? and you start discussing about Steve Jobs. So, in my opinion, it is, let's say, quite crazy. I don't know what you think about that, but I think that it would be nice to, let's say, to talk about the real story of microcomputing. We cannot provide only a story where Apple and Microsoft build this market, because it is also a historical, let's say, it is
to who won.
It is not true.
Right, because whoever wins gets to change history, and I have learned to accept that. And to that point, I carry an Apple, so they won. If you see a movie, a documentary about the 1980s, you will only see Apple mentioned, maybe IBM. You will not see the Commodore stuff, and that is sad, but it was so long ago. I get it. So that's kind of, it's just, you know, the 4 stages. I have a t-shirt that says the 4 stages, you know, of Commodore, and the final one's acceptance, you know, grief, defiance, all those. And I'm in the acceptance phase 4.
Okay,
right.
last question. This is a somewhat awkward question, but I have to ask you. In your opinion, what were the main reasons for the failure of the 264 series? Was it solely a matter of high price, or were there other factors at play as well?
Well, we actually have talked about it. Jack Trammell left, and Commodore just kind of circled the drain. There was no continuation of the vision. There was a bastardization of the price structure. We laughed too. We saw it and went, well, there you go. And we started, like, then I was working on the Commodore LCD. So I got to bury my head into the next computer and not worry about the last computer with the marketing department and what they were doing to it. So if Jack had stayed, it'd been different.
So what were the most valuable lessons you learned from working on Commodore in general, and how did it shape your way to work, to live?
I am a child of the Jack Trammell culture of, you say you're going to do it, you do it. You take responsibility for the end result. And that's my takeaway from my experience with Commodore. And we were okay with each other. Commodore learned they could trust me, and I learned I could trust me. And I knew I could fulfill these jobs Commodore wanted, and it was very fulfilling. Yeah, we were not going to fail, you know, our part of it. But let's put it that way. The hardware would be sitting on the table when we were done with software. So.
Good. Well, we have finished, finally. Well, I want to express my profound gratitude for your generous availability for the interview and the video, and sincerely hope to have you back on the channel for more collaboration if you want in the future.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Gary, for your contribution, and thank you.
Yeah, I'll pass it on. I'll pass it on to the guys. You know, it was a team effort. And when somebody tells me that they liked, you know, or had one for Christmas or whatever, I tend to bring that up with the guys, you know, and say, people still like what you did, man. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.